14 hours after my daughter Clara's $80,000 wedding, the photographer called me at 2:14 a.m. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Arthur, check your email. I think they're robbing you." No preamble. No apology for the hour. Just 7 words that detonated my entire world. I'm Arthur Sterling. I built bridges across the Midwest for 40 years. I know how structures fail, metal fatigue, foundation erosion, the slow compromise of load-bearing joints. But I never thought I'd watch my own family collapse in real time, frame by frame, in a photographer's proof sheet. Elena Vance had been reviewing the reception photos in her studio, zooming in to check focus and lighting, when she found them. "Look at folder 7, she said, her breath catching. "And Arthur, don't open it with anyone else in the room." The blue light of my laptop illuminated my face as the images loaded. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m., right when the DJ was calling everyone to the dance floor. Julian, my new son-in-law, and Sarah, my youngest daughter, weren't dancing. They were photographing the inside of my floor safe. I paid for that wedding the way I paid for everything in my life, methodically, without complaint, and in full. $80,000. The invoice sat on my desk for 2 weeks before the ceremony, itemized down to the last champagne flute and imported peony. Clara had called it her dream day, and I wasn't about to let my late wife's memory be cheapened by cutting corners on our eldest daughter's only wedding. I built bridges for 40 years. Interstate overpasses in Indiana, rail spans across the Fox River, pedestrian crossings that could hold 500 people at once without so much as a tremor. I understood load capacity, tension, and trust. Steel doesn't lie. Concrete doesn't deceive. You calculate the forces, you reinforce the weak points, and the structure holds. I thought I'd built my family the same way. Clara was always the ambitious one. Marketing director at 29, corner office downtown, the kind of daughter who sent thank you notes on embossed stationery. When she brought Julian home last Christmas, I'll admit I was relieved. He was articulate, well-dressed, worked in wealth management. He shook my hand with both of his and called me sir without prompting. Sarah, my youngest, seemed to adore him. She'd even helped plan the engagement party. The wedding was flawless. White silk draped from the rafters of the Lake Forest Country Club. A string quartet during cocktail hour. A 7-tier cake that looked like architecture itself, all clean lines and sugar flowers. I walked Clara down the aisle in the same tuxedo I'd worn to bury her mother 3 years earlier. She squeezed my arm and whispered, "Mom would have loved this." I believed her. I smiled through 200 handshakes, danced with both my daughters, and gave a toast about love being the only structure that doesn't need blueprints. Everyone laughed. Julian raised his glass to me. The photographer, Elena, moved through the crowd like a ghost, her camera clicking in elegant bursts. By midnight, I was alone in my master suite, my bow tie undone, staring at the ceiling and thinking I'd done right by my girls. The estate was quiet. The catering trucks had gone. Clara and Julian were staying at the Drake Hotel downtown before their morning flight to Santorini. Sarah had stumbled back to the guest house, tipsy and laughing. I fell asleep believing I'd just witnessed the happiest day of my daughter's life. I woke up 14 hours later to learn I'd actually funded a heist. Folder 7 wasn't labeled like the others. The main gallery Elena had sent was organized by hour, ceremony, cocktails, first dance, cake cutting. But folder 7 was just a number, tucked at the bottom of the directory like something she didn't want to name. I clicked it open. The first image was blurry, a high-speed shot that caught motion in low light. It took me 3 seconds to orient myself. The location was my study. I recognized the oak paneling and the brass lamp on my desk. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. The reception was still going. I remembered that moment. The DJ had just called everyone to the floor for some line dance the younger guests requested. But 2 people hadn't gone to the floor. The second photo was sharper. Julian, still in his tuxedo, was crouched beside my desk. My floor safe was open. I could see the steel door swung wide, the interior light I'd installed years ago glowing faintly. He was holding something, a small leather ledger I kept for passwords and account numbers. Not the kind of thing you store digitally when you're 71 and you've seen enough data breaches on the evening news. He was photographing it with his phone. The third photo made my stomach drop. Sarah was standing behind him, one hand braced on the doorframe, the other holding a pen light. She was illuminating the pages while Julian shot them. Her bridesmaid dress was still perfect, hair still pinned in that elaborate updo she'd spent 3 hours on that morning. But her face wasn't the face of someone sneaking a private moment at a wedding. It was the face of someone working. The fourth photo showed her smiling. Not the soft, champagne bubble smile of a wedding guest. A sharp smile. The smile of someone who'd just gotten away with something. Elena had included a voice note at the bottom of the folder. I clicked it. Arthur, she whispered, I shoot in burst mode during events, 15 frames per second, so I don't miss moments. I caught these by accident when I was tracking the crowd movement. I enhanced the exposure to check the lighting, and then I saw what they were doing. I don't know what's in that safe, but they spent 11 minutes in your study. I have 43 photos. This isn't random. This is planned. I sat in the blue glow of my laptop, my hands numb. 11 minutes. 43 photos. Planned. I didn't bother with slippers. I walked barefoot down the hallway, my heartbeat ticking in my ears like a countdown clock. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a disaster, when the noise has stopped but the damage is still spreading. My study smelled like cigars and old leather, the same as it had for 30 years. I didn't turn on the overhead light. I used the desk lamp, the same brass one that had glowed in Elena's photos just hours earlier. The safe was under the floor beneath my desk, hidden under a Persian rug my wife had bought at an estate sale in 1996. I rolled the rug back. The seams of the safe door were invisible if you didn't know where to look, cut flush into the hardwood. I knew where to look. I entered the combination slowly, my fingers cold and stiff. 6 digits, my wedding anniversary. The lock disengaged with a soft click, and I lifted the door. Empty. Not just empty. Cleaned out. The emergency cash I kept, 12,000 in hundreds, bundled in bank sleeves, gone. The gold Krugerrands my father had given me in 1979, 8 of them in a felt pouch, worth maybe 15,000 now, gone. The ledger Julian had been photographing in the pictures, gone, of course, but I'd already known that. But it was the other things missing that made it real. My wife's engagement ring, the one Clara said she didn't want because the setting was too old-fashioned. Gone. The external hard drive with our family photos, every birthday and Christmas since we bought our first digital camera. Gone. The deed to the house, the title to my car, the legal documents I kept in a fireproof envelope. Gone. They hadn't just robbed me. They'd erased me. I sat back on my heels, staring into the empty cavity in my floor. There was a faint scuff mark on the interior steel, fresh, like someone had dragged something metal across it in a hurry. I ran my finger along the edge. Still warm. That's when I understood the timeline. The safe hadn't been emptied weeks ago, slowly, carefully. It had been emptied tonight. During the reception. While I was shaking hands and cutting cake and giving toasts about love and blueprints, my daughters and my son-in-law were in this room, dismantling my life. I looked at the clock on my desk, 3:02 a.m. Clara and Julian's flight to Santorini was scheduled for 6:30 p.m., 15 hours from now. I had 15 hours to stop them. I didn't close the safe. I left it open, the way you'd leave evidence undisturbed at a crime scene. Then I walked to the tall window that overlooked the back lawn. The guest house sat 200 feet from the main estate, a small stone cottage my wife had called the garden house, because it was covered in ivy every summer. It had 1 bedroom, a kitchenette, and a bathroom with old porcelain fixtures that rattled when the water ran. We'd built it for her mother, who never ended up needing it. After my wife died, it sat empty for a year. Then Sarah asked if she could stay there temporarily. That was 5 years ago. No rent. No utilities. No end date. She'd told me she was between things, that she needed time to figure out her career, that living at home, well, near home, would let her save money and get back on her feet. She was 27 then. She's 32 now. I let her stay because she was my daughter, and because the house felt too empty after the funeral, and because I thought having her close meant I was being a good father. I was wrong. The lights were still on in the guest house. I could see the glow behind the curtains, the flicker of a television or a laptop screen. She was awake. Of course she was. She was probably counting the gold right now, organizing the documents, making sure the job was complete. I thought about all the times she'd come into the main house unannounced. Just grabbing a snack, Dad. I need to borrow your printer. Do you have any batteries? She'd had keys to every door, access to every room. I trusted her the way you trust your own blood. She wasn't a daughter living in the guest house. She was an operative embedded in my home. The inside man. I watched the lights for a long time, my breath fogging the glass. I thought about confronting her right now, walking across the wet grass in my bare feet and pounding on her door. But I didn't. Because confrontation without a plan is just noise, and noise doesn't build bridges. I needed to be smarter than my anger. I needed to be structural. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in 2 years, Marcus Thorne, the attorney who'd handled my wife's estate. He was expensive, ruthless, and he didn't sleep much. If anyone could help me dismantle a conspiracy in 15 hours, it was him. I sent a text, need to see you immediately. Legal emergency. Can you meet at dawn? The reply came in 40 seconds, Sunset Diner, Route 41. 6 a.m. Come alone. I looked back at the guest house. The lights went off. The Sunset Diner was the kind of place that never closed and never changed. Red vinyl booths, chrome edges, a jukebox that hadn't worked since the 90s. At 6 in the morning, it smelled like burnt coffee and fryer grease. The only other customers were a trucker in a booth by the window and a waitress who looked like she'd been on shift since yesterday. Marcus Thorne was already in the back corner, a leather briefcase open on the table, a laptop glowing in front of him. He was 63, silver-haired, with the kind of face that made juries nervous. He didn't stand when I approached. He just nodded at the seat across from him. You look like hell, he said. I've had a bad night. So I gathered. He slid a coffee cup toward me. Start from the beginning. And don't leave anything out. I told him everything. The wedding. The 2 a.m. call. Folder 7. The empty safe. The guest house. He didn't interrupt. He took notes on a yellow legal pad, his handwriting small and precise. When I finished, he sat back and tapped his pen against his teeth. How much did Clara get access to? He asked. Joint account. I added her last month. She said it was for emergency access in case something happened to me. How much is in it? $170,000. Marcus closed his eyes. Arthur. I know. Do you know if she's moved it yet? I don't know. I haven't checked. He spun his laptop around. Log in. Now. I entered my banking credentials, my hands shaking. The page loaded. I navigated to the joint account. Balance, $4,200. Jesus, Marcus muttered. She'd moved $165,000 in less than 6 hours. Where did it go? I asked. Marcus clicked through the transaction history. Offshore. Cayman account. Routed through 2 intermediary banks. He looked up at me. This wasn't impulsive, Arthur. This was choreographed. I felt the air go out of my lungs. Can you get it back? Maybe. If we move right now. I can file an emergency injunction, freeze any remaining accounts in your name, and petition for fraud investigation. But it's Sunday morning. We won't get a judge until tomorrow at the earliest. They leave for Santorini tonight. I know. If they get on that plane. I know. Marcus pulled a file folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. Here's what we do. First, I freeze every account you still control. Transfer everything into a revocable trust with me as co-trustee. That way, even if they have your passwords, they can't touch it. Second, I draft an annulment petition. If we can prove fraud, and we can, with those photos, we can void the marriage before it's consummated. It's been 14 hours. How do we know it hasn't been consummated? Marcus smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. We ask. And if Julian lies, we file anyway and let him prove otherwise. What about Sarah? Eviction notice. Illinois law allows for immediate termination of tenancy in cases of theft or criminal activity. We serve her today. She's out in 72 hours. I stared at the papers. My family, reduced to legal documents. Do it, I said. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'll have the paperwork ready by noon. But Arthur, there's one more thing. What? If you want to stop them before they leave, you need to confront them at the airport. Publicly. With evidence. Otherwise, they get on that plane, and this turns into a years-long international legal nightmare. I looked out the diner window. The sun was rising over Route 41, pale and cold. Then I'll meet them at the gate, I said. Clara called at 11:47 a.m., exactly 12 hours after she'd been photographed robbing me. Daddy. Her voice was bright, breathless, the way it used to sound when she was 8 years old and showing me a good report card. I'm so sorry to bother you, I know you must be exhausted, but I'm packing for the flight and I just realized something. I was sitting in my study, Marcus's documents spread across my desk. The annulment petition. The trust transfer forms. The eviction notice with Sarah's name at the top. I put the phone on speaker and kept signing. What is it, sweetheart? I kept my voice steady, neutral. Engineers don't show stress in the field. Julian and I were going through our finances this morning, and we realized the honeymoon package didn't include the resort fees and excursions. It's so embarrassing, but we're about $8,000 short. I know it's last minute, but could you possibly wire us something? Just to cover the extras. We'll pay you back, obviously, once we're home and settled. $8,000. Not a huge amount. Just enough to seem reasonable. Just enough that a doting father who'd already spent $80,000 might say yes without thinking. Just enough to test if I knew. Of course, I said. What account should I send it to? There was a pause. Half a second. The kind of pause a poker player makes when they're deciding whether to double down. The joint one is fine, she said. That way it'll clear faster. The joint account that now held $4,200 instead of $170,000. She knew I hadn't checked it yet. She was counting on it. I'll take care of it right now, I said. You're the best, Dad. Seriously. Julian and I were just saying this morning how lucky I am to have you. Not every father would, her voice caught, a little hitch that sounded like emotion. Not every father would give his daughter such a beautiful wedding. Mom would be so proud of you. That line. That specific line. She'd workshopped it. Practiced it. Used my dead wife as a weapon. Have a safe flight, Clara, I said, and hung up. I didn't send the wire. Instead, I finished signing the last document, slid it into an envelope, and sealed it. Marcus had already filed the emergency trust transfer. Every account I still controlled, my pension, my savings, the small brokerage account I'd been using for quarterly expenses, was now locked behind two signatures. Mine and Marcus's. Clara could ask for $8,000. She could ask for $8 million. The answer would be the same. I checked the time, 12:03 p.m. 6.5 hours until their flight. I picked up the second envelope, the one with Sarah's name on it, and walked toward the back door. It was time to serve my youngest daughter. Sarah answered on the third knock, wearing a silk robe I was pretty sure I'd bought Clara for Christmas 2 years ago. Her hair was wet, her face still creased from sleep. She looked young and harmless, like someone who'd never touched a floor safe in her life. "Dad." She squinted at me in the noon sunlight. "What's wrong? You look weird." I held out the envelope. "What's this?" she asked, not taking it. "Eviction notice. You have 72 hours to vacate the guest house." She laughed. Actually laughed, like I'd just told a joke with bad timing. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you and Julian were in my study during the reception. I'm talking about the photographs Elena took of you holding a penlight while he copied my financial records. I'm talking about the empty safe in my floor and the $165,000 Clara moved out of our joint account this morning." Her face didn't change all at once. It was gradual, like watching a mask slip in slow motion. The confusion faded first, then the amusement, and finally what replaced it was something cold and evaluating. "You can't prove any of that," she said quietly. "I have 43 photos. Time-stamped. High resolution. Elena's already turned them over to my attorney. Elena's a liar. Elena's a professional who shot 15 frames per second and caught you committing a felony." Sarah crossed her arms. The robe slipped open slightly, and I saw she was still wearing jewelry from the wedding. A bracelet. Pearls. My wife's pearls, the ones that had been in the safe. I pointed at them. "Those were your mother's." She touched them reflexively, then dropped her hand. "Clara gave them to me. Clara stole them. At 11:47 p.m. yesterday. With your help." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. A bird called from somewhere in the trees. The sprinklers kicked on across the lawn, their rhythm steady and indifferent. "You're a senile old man," Sarah said finally. Her voice was different now. Stripped of pretense. "You've been losing it for years. Everyone knows it. Clara and I have been protecting you from yourself. By robbing me. By making sure you didn't gamble away our inheritance on some idiot investment scheme or a gold-digger nurse. That money is ours, Dad. Mom would have wanted us to have it. Your mother would have disowned you." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Get off my porch." "It's my porch. It's my house. You've been squatting here for 5 years without paying a dime. That ends today." I handed her the envelope again. This time she took it, her fingers snatching it out of my hand. "You'll regret this," she said. "I already do. I regret that it took me this long." I turned and walked back across the lawn. I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard the door slam hard enough to rattle the frame. When I reached the main house, I checked my phone. Clara had texted, "Did you send the wire? We need to leave for the airport soon." I didn't reply. I had 5 hours. O'Hare International Airport, Terminal 5. The board said their flight to Athens, connecting to Santorini, was on time, departing from gate M9. I arrived at 5:50 p.m., 40 minutes before boarding. I was carrying a leather folder. Inside were 3 things: printouts of Elena's photos, the annulment petition, and a cashier's check for $1,200, Clara's half of the joint account's remaining balance, calculated to the dollar. Marcus had wanted to come with me. I told him no. This wasn't a legal matter anymore. This was a father closing a bridge he should have never built. I spotted them near the gate, sitting in the waiting area. Julian was on his phone, laughing at something. Clara was reading a magazine, her legs crossed, wearing linen pants and expensive sunglasses. They looked like every other couple about to board a honeymoon flight. Beautiful. Carefree. In love. I walked up and stood directly in front of them. Clara saw me first. Her face lit up in surprise, genuine surprise, which almost made me laugh. "Dad. Oh my God, what are you doing here? Did you come to see us off?" She stood, arms open for a hug. I didn't move. "Sit down," Clara. Something in my voice stopped her. Julian looked up from his phone, his smile fading. Is everything okay, sir? He asked. I opened the folder and placed the first photo on Clara's lap. The image of Julian crouched beside my open safe, his phone aimed at my ledger. Her face went white. I know what you did, I said quietly. I know about the safe. I know about the account. I know this whole marriage was a setup. Julian stood up fast, his hand reaching for the photo, but I pulled the folder back. Don't, I said. There are 42 more where that came from, and my attorney already has copies. Dad, listen, this isn't. Clara's voice was shaking now, the confident bride replaced by something frantic and cornered. This is a misunderstanding. You were just stealing from me. During your own wedding. While I was giving a toast about how proud I was. We weren't stealing, we were protecting. Stop. I placed the annulment petition on top of the photo. Your marriage is void. Fraud invalidates consent. My attorney filed this morning. Julian's face twisted. You can't do that. We're legally married. You're legally thieves. And the $165,000 you moved. Frozen. The accounts you were planning to access when you landed in Greece. Closed. The joint account Clara called me about this morning. Empty, except for this. I dropped the cashier's check on top of the papers. $1,200. That's your half. Spend it wisely. Clara was crying now, but they weren't the soft tears of shame. They were angry, desperate tears. You don't understand. Sarah said you were going to cut us out. She said you were changing your will, that some charity was going to get everything. So you decided to take it first. We deserve it. Her voice rose, sharp enough that people nearby turned to look. We're your daughters. We took care of you after Mom died, we visited, we called, we pretended to care about your stupid bridge stories. Pretended. She stopped, realizing what she'd said. I looked at Julian. Did you ever love her? Or was this just business? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I closed the folder. Your flight's boarding. I suggest you get on it. When you land, you'll have nothing waiting for you but each other. Maybe that'll be enough. I turned and walked away. Behind me, Clara was shouting something, her voice breaking. Julian was swearing. A gate agent was asking if everything was all right. I didn't turn around. I walked back through the terminal, past the families and the businessmen and the tourists, and I realized something. I felt lighter. The locksmith finished at 8:30 that night. 5 new locks. Front door, back door, study, master suite, and the external gate that led to the guest house path. He handed me a ring with 5 brass keys and said, "You're all set, Mr. Sterling. No one's getting in here without your permission." I paid him in cash and watched his van disappear down the long driveway. The house was silent. Completely silent. No footsteps in the guest house. No phone calls from daughters asking for favors. No voices pretending to care. Just the old wood settling, the furnace kicking on, the distant sound of wind in the trees. I sat on the back porch with a glass of scotch, 18-year-old Macallan, the bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. I decided this qualified. The guest house was dark. Sarah had left around 4, her car packed with garbage bags full of clothes and whatever else she'd managed to grab. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't apologize. She just left a note on the kitchen counter that said, "You'll die alone." Maybe I would. But I wouldn't die robbed. I opened my laptop and navigated to the wedding photos, the ones Elena had uploaded before everything fell apart. Hundreds of them. Clara in her dress. Julian at the altar. Sarah laughing during the toasts. My smile, wide and proud and ignorant. I selected all of them. My cursor hovered over the delete button. Then I stopped. I deselect everything except one folder. Folder 7. I saved those images to 3 separate drives, labeled them, and locked them in the new safe Marcus had delivered that afternoon. Then I deleted the rest. The ceremony. The cake. The first dance. All of it gone. I kept only the photos that told the truth. On the porch, I finished my scotch and looked out at the empty guest house. Tomorrow, I'd have it cleaned out. Maybe rent it to a graduate student, someone who'd appreciate it. Someone who'd pay on time. The night air was cold, but I didn't go inside yet. I sat there, alone in the house I'd bought 40 years ago, the house I'd filled with love and laughter and, apparently, vipers. But it was mine again. Every inch of it. And that was enough. I know a lot of you are listening to this alone, maybe during a commute or while you're working, wondering if your own family would ever do something like this. I hope they wouldn't. I really do. But if Arthur's story made you feel something, anger, relief, recognition, then maybe you understand why we share these stories. We're not just here for entertainment. We're here because sometimes you need to know you're not the only one who's been betrayed by the people you trusted most. If that resonates with you, consider subscribing. Not for me. For the community of people who've survived what Arthur survived, and need to know they're not alone.